We're amidst the hot weather of the summer. And although I did a summer list, I also wanted to do a citrus list. So let's get into it. I love a good citrus note in my fragrances. An effective incorporation of a nice zesty lemon or orange or I guess bergamot. It has an energizing effect on a fragrance when you put it on. Perfect for the warm weather because sour notes, when they heat up on your skin, they tend to sweeten up a little bit, so it does balance itself out. This top 10 includes a mixture of niche fragrances and designer fragrances, although the general price is on the lower end of the spectrum. I do know there are some extremely high-end citrus fragrances out there, but I decided to keep them off this list because I like my fresh fragrances to be a bit more affordable, so I don't worry about spraying it all over myself. My number 10 citrus fragrance is L'Eau pour Homme by Issey Miyake. I was gonna put the summer edition on this list instead, but I opted for the original because of its more brazen use of yuzu. The flankers are a little more on the aquatic side, a little bit fruitier with the introduction of a slight kiwi note, but the original has that beautiful citrus opening that gets into a nice woody dry down that is an absolute signature scent worthy citrus-based fragrance. It's at number 10 because the yuzu has been diluted over time. It's not as prominent as it once was, but it still is a great fragrance nonetheless. L'Eau pour Homme at number 10. My number 9 citrus fragrance in my collection is Terre de Mes Eau Tres Fraiche. This is one of the fragrances that appeared on my summer list because of its awesome use of citruses. The lemon-orange combination in this guy is extremely authentic. Terre de Mes's quality, especially when it comes to citrus-based notes, is phenomenal. But the only reason I put this at number 9 is because it's a citrus fragrance that I would want to wear in slightly more professional environments. While most of the time I want to wear citruses when I'm at the beach or when it's a nice hot summer day, but still, phenomenal quality. Number 9, Eau Tres Fraiche. My number 8 citrus fragrance is Versace Man Eau Fraiche. Some people are quick to label this as a basic synthetic fragrance, but by and large, this is one of the best value purchases for summer fragrances in general. It does not have a generic freshness, although it may be a bit generic in its aquatic nature, but the tangerine, mandarin orange type of citrus in here is semi-sweet. It's not just a brazen sour accord. And if you wear fragrances, you'll probably know that fragrances with a certain sweetness tend to get more attention. And this is a great balance of a sweet and sour citrus accord that works amazingly well in the hot weather for compliments. I only have it at number 8 because it is one of the more popular summer fragrances for men. It's also the reason I didn't put it on my summer list in general. But for citrus fragrances, especially considering the price and the availability, solid choice.
Wow.
Number 8, Versace Man Eau Fraiche. The number 7 citrus fragrance on my list is L'Homme Cologne by Guerlain. While not a pure citrus fragrance through and through, the lemon in here is divine. And the way that it coexists with the sweet almond accord makes this both unique but still pleasant and a compliment getter. Like a few fragrances on this list, L'Homme Cologne is a tale of 2 fragrances. Starts off with the lemon, ends with the sweet almond, which is great because you want the citrus to be going in the day, and then you want a bit more of a sweetness at night. I had this at number 7, however, because the almond is the distinguishing factor in this fragrance, not necessarily the lemon. If we're talking about citruses, there's other fragrances that do it better in my opinion. Number 7, L'Homme Cologne. Just missing my top 5 at number 6, Dior Homme Cologne. If you've watched my top 5 Dior Homme fragrances, you'll know how I feel about this guy. While not a very complex fragrance, its beauty is in its simplicity. Less is more with Dior Homme Cologne. It has a beautiful, transparent-like quality with a lemon ice type of feel. Obviously, ice doesn't have a smell, but it has a cooling, refreshing quality, and so does this. In the deep dry down, I get a slight remnant of vetiver, but there's nothing really floral about this fragrance. There's no Dior Homme iris. It's really completely about the lemon. That being said, if you had a vintage version of Dior Homme Cologne, not a whole lot of citrus there. It's just a toned down version of the original Dior Homme. The only reason I have it at number 6, however, is performance. The performance is terrible on my skin, but the quality of the scent is very high. I'm pretty sure I only wore this about 3 or 4 times, and that's how much juice I used, so. Bit of an exaggeration, but not too far off. Number 6, Dior Homme Cologne. The number 5 citrus fragrance on this list is John Varvatos Artisan Pure. This is definitely my favorite citrus green floral combination in the designer category. It's a clementine and petitgrain fragrance with a bit of a cedar dry down. But considering the low price point of this fragrance, I was so surprised how high of a quality this fragrance has. If you tend to gravitate towards neroli or bergamot fragrances, if you like a neroli portofino or even a Xerjoff Neo, John Varvatos Artisan Pure rolls with the big boys at a much lower cost. Sadly though, number 5, because like number 6, performance is really bad on me. I do have to spray my clothes to get a day's worth of this. If not, it's gone on my skin after about 3 or 4 hours, which is a shame because I do thoroughly enjoy those 3 or 4 hours. Number 5, Artisan Pure. My number 4 citrus-based fragrance in my collection is Tom Ford's Grey Vetiver Eau de Toilette. Now, Grey Vetiver is a fantastic office fragrance because it's a professional, masculine, clean vetiver-based fragrance. With the note of vetiver, which is an earthy root, you have one end of the spectrum where it's really damp and earthy and inky as well. It has an ink-like smell. Or you have this, which is the other end of the spectrum, where it has a clean, green, woody quality to it. Again, very masculine. But why I love the Eau de Toilette is the amped up citrus in here. The citrus that's incorporated with the Grey Vetiver DNA makes it breathtaking. It is a fragrance that always puts a smile on my face when I wear it. And not only is it a perfect office fragrance, but the Eau de Toilette, it just becomes a masterful citrus fragrance. And the vetiver in here gives it a more reserved, mature quality to it. That just makes you feel prestigious. It's only at number 4, however, because my top 3 are bangers. Number 4, Grey Vetiver Eau de Toilette. My number 3 citrus-based fragrance is 24 Ice Gold by Scent Story. Now this is by far my most floral citrus fragrance on this list. This has similarities to Light Blue for Women by Dolce & Gabbana. But I couldn't care less because the way the citrus and the floral works in here blows my mind when I wear it. The scent cloud that this gives you is such a compliment getter, even though you may think it smells feminine, but it just smells very vibrant and fresh. Even though this is closer to the women's iteration of Light Blue, it caused me to sell my Light Blue pour Homme and Light Blue pour Homme Intense. I didn't want to wear them anymore as soon as I smelt this. Considering how light it ultimately is, it lasts a very long time. I get about 7 or 8 hours with a citrus floral fragrance. That kind of performance is very hard to come by with these accords, and you're getting a very high quality fragrance at a very low price. I do have it at number 3, however, only because it is pretty floral. So it may not be your cup of tea if you're an uber butch dude or an older gentleman that is more old school and classic in your perfumery usage. But I encourage you all to try this and give it a proper wearing in the high summer heat. You'll really get a good idea of how awesome this one smells. Number 3, 24 Ice Gold. My number 2 citrus-based fragrance was recently featured on Royal Rumble. Allure Homme Edition Blanche by Chanel. Yet another fragrance with a relatively simple composition, but a complex blend. Allure Homme Blanche is a fragrance that is dominated by citrus, but is ever so slightly in the gourmand category of fragrances. For those of you who don't know what gourmand means when it comes to colognes and perfumes, it just means that it smells edible. It smells yummy and tasty. Food-like, perhaps. The gourmand quality comes from the lemon combined with vanilla. This fragrance starts off with a beautiful, authentic citrus that I just can't get enough of. But when it does settle down, it becomes sweeter, creamier. There is a subtle woodiness that gets introduced, which doesn't make the fragrance all that woody. It just turns the lemon into a little more of a bitter bergamot smell. And then that bitter citrus just kind of lives on with the vanilla. But when all is said and done, Allure Homme Edition Blanche is a favorite among many, many people because it just smells really awesome. And it has that incredible citrus note that just sets it over the top. The only reason this isn't number 1 is because number 1 is better, but it's also more expensive. At number 2, Allure Homme Edition Blanche. And finally, my number 1 citrus fragrance on this list is Cedro de Taormina by Acqua di Parma. YOLO! Now, I told you guys that I wouldn't include high-end niche fragrances on this list. I try to keep it relatively affordable with this predominantly designer catalog. But with Acqua di Parma, I feel they're right on the cusp of designer and niche. Especially if you're looking around the Facebook groups and the gray market, Acqua di Parma fragrances are very, very well priced. In fact, I managed to pick up this bottle for less than $100, which is around the price of the Chanel or the Tom Ford. Cedro de Taormina is one of the more recent Blue Mediterranean line releases, and although it doesn't have a straight up citrus like a Bergamonto de Calabria or even an Arancia de Capri, this one smells the best. Cedro de Taormina's blend is unlike anything I've ever smelled. Essentially, it's lemon and cedarwood. But unlike Allura Edition Blanche, where we have the citrus and then the sweet, this one combines them and blends them so beautifully. It is a fragrance that I cannot stop smelling, and it's helped solidify my passion and love for the entire Acqua di Parma line. I think they're the top shelf of summer fragrances, guys. And it's because of fragrances like this. The execution here is flawless, and that's why it's my #1 citrus fragrance, Cedro de Taormina. There were a ton of fragrances I wanted to include on this list, everyone. Citrus is one of those notes that it's used in many fragrances. If you think about it, I'm pretty sure half of my collection has at least a bit of bergamot in it. Citrus is everywhere, but these fragrances do it best in my collection within a reasonable price range. I purposely left out my Xerzsofts and my Creeds because I wanted to offer up a list where you didn't have to break the bank to get some of my personal favorites. Because sharing is caring. At least that's my opinion. And this was my opinion on these fragrances on this list on my channel. Get your own! Oh, and if you guys care, just missing the list was London Line by Mancera. If you want to watch more top 10s, click on this rectangle right here, and then some other videos here if you want to check them out. Peace!